Welcome to Season 5 of the Be Your Own Kind podcast, where we interview individuals that are basking in the lane they have created. To keep up with all things BYOK, visit our website at beyourownkind.com. While there, stop by the BYOK shop to grab our merch to add daily inspiration to your life. BYOK has also created a Facebook group that offers giveaways, business advice, and lots of laughs, and most importantly, sisterhood. Have time for a chat or to just get acquainted with your girl? Go to our site and click under bookings to set up a 30-minute coffee chat. Be sure to tune into the BYOK 2 Cents Live every Wednesday at 9:20 Central Standard Time on the BYOK platform YouTube channel, or you can listen to us on Fluent Radio at www.fluentradio.com. Last but not least, if you love our content, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and share our episodes. Or if you feel so inclined, send a donation to our PayPal at paypal.me/BYOK24. Thank you for rocking with us each season and enjoy the episode. Well, hello, Janyelle. How are you?
I'm awesome. How about yourself?
I am doing pretty well. I know off the record we were talking about moving, coming from a city and now living in like a more suburban area.
Right.
The adjustment of it all, right?
Absolutely. I'm gonna forever be a D girl though. So it's like the saying that says you can take the girl out the city, but you can't take the city out the girl. That's so me. Like, I think when you grew up in a major city, no matter where you move, it's just in you.
I agree with that. Here's a little fact. I was born in Detroit. I don't remember nothing about it, but I was raised in Chicago.
Wow.
So I honestly know nothing about Detroit, but I know everything about Chicago. My dad was in the military.
It's probably very similar though. I think many major, especially Midwest, like they're all similar. Like I feel like if you lived in one place, you kind of got the vibe of how all of it would be if you were to live in any major city.
Yeah, that's true. But it like I don't really mention that I was born there because then people start asking me, "Have you been to that?" I'm like, no. I have no idea what's in Detroit.
Don't feel bad because it's been a few years since I've moved from there to where I am now, and the difference is so dramatic. Like, oh my God, like I'll see places and I'm like, that's Detroit? Wow, okay. And it's just changing so fast that it's probably new to the people who was living there, because even before I moved, it was so many changes happening. It was just like, where am I? Like, I literally started feeling like it was just a different place, with things that you were used to growing up is no longer there. The businesses that you grew up going to are no longer there, and it's just like this influx of all new stuff. So it's a different place.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Chicago too. This whole gentrification clearly is nationwide, so they're just. Yeah, the old neighborhoods are turning into new neighborhoods with coffee shops and Whole Foods.
Exactly. Yeah, that's happening all across the country. So it's just like, I think I call it Americanizing things. You know what I mean? So it's almost like if you've been to one major city nowadays, you've been to them all, because they're all kind of like made off of the same kind of businesses and structures that are success, their formats of success. So they kind of replicate those things all across the country. So you've been one place, you've been them all.
Yeah, you're making a point. You're actually making a point with that, because Chicago's starting to look like the next city and the next city and the next city. So yeah. So we just started talking. I just want to first thank you for signing up to be on my platform. I am super excited to get into your story. Can you first introduce yourself to the audience and give them a little bit about you?
Sure, absolutely. So hi, everybody. I am Janyelle. I go by the name of J. Marie, and I am the founder of J. Marie Premium Sneakers, which is a premium sneaker brand that is conceived in Detroit. That's why we were talking about Detroit. That's where I'm from, and handcrafted in Italy. So that's the gist of what it is.
Oh, I love the humbleness. I love how you plan that down. Look, she is amazing. I actually was looking online because on your forum you were mentioning how the sneaker game is a male dominated game. Now I might have probably known that, but I was like, wait a minute. It is. It's not, I'm thinking it was like a light bulb. Like, it's not a lot of females
that's
that
so
own their
true.
own sneaker brand. So I think that was that. I think it's super dope that you're tapping into a untapped territory basically for women.
Yes, yes. And I'm glad that you pointed that out because I was just talking about that yesterday with someone because I came across this TikTok and she was talking about different strategies that big brands use like to gain influence from their true target audience. And it just kind of brought me back to that same conversation. Like, it's not like a lot of these sneaker brands, they're not geared towards women. I mean, we wear them because that's what's offered, but they're not made with you in mind. And the sneaker industry is male dominated and it's always been sports dominated. All of the sneakers are geared towards different sports. So it's just like, okay, everybody's not that. So whereas for the women
No.
like me, like a woman who has a certain type of style that doesn't necessarily fall into that.
Right. I love that. I love that. And you know what? I'm not really a sneaker gal because of that. Like, I want to walk, like, I have a wide foot, and I feel like sometimes I have to like stretch those shoestrings out so far. Then when I finally get there, now it's the little tongue is flopping, and I'm walking, and it's just weird. So you're right. Like, something that's tailored to not only just a woman foot, but a swollen foot. Something.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say swollen.
Not swollen. Well, I do swell up, but I do got a little fat.
Yeah, like a
wide width. Yeah.
Yeah, me and you both. So don't feel bad because I'm kind of on the what people might consider like a bigger size when it comes to women's sneakers. So yeah, definitely. And that's another thing. A lot of heels, they're not made for people with wide feet. So it's just like you're being put into this scenario where you're uncomfortable because you're trying to do something that was not made for you.
Right. So. Right. Speaking of heels, so you used to wear nothing but heels, right? Sneakers weren't even part of your life. So what can you just share your story of how you transitioned from a heel girl to a sneakerhead?
Sure, absolutely. So I always start with telling people the story of me living in downtown Detroit because it's so vivid for me because it was just so new to me. I'm a girl that always grew up in close-knit neighborhoods. And, you know, at some point I remember seeing things like Sex in the City and all these different shows that kind of glamorize that living downtown life. So I think at one point all women were like, I want to live downtown. I want to live, you know, I want to have a Sex in the City type of scenario. And I think that's where I was at when I graduated from college. I'm like, I want to live in a major city, you know, downtown with water views and just, you know, live the life and just be in the midst of where everything was happening. And I sought that life and got it. But then I started realizing very quickly that the way I was dressing wasn't fit for that type of lifestyle because anybody who knows anything about living in the downtown area, especially in the center of downtown, you have a lot of parking structures and you have to walk a ways to get to different things because there's not a lot of parking. So that was one thing I was beginning to be like, okay, you can't always have your a change of shoes and change in the middle of something, you know, it's just inconvenient. So that was one thing that kind of made me start getting on the track of thinking, I want to start dressing more comfortable. But what kind of really pushed it over was me being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So prior to being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I was already in and out of the hospital, dealing with different illnesses. At the time, I didn't know what it was. I was just kind of always in the hospital. Like one time I had lost vision in my right eye. Then another time I was having all these weird body sensations. Then I was like every other month, seriously, it was just like something new, something different. So I was always feeling achy, always sleepy all the time, just different things. So I'm like, you know what? I can't wear these tight clothing because I would always wear like the tight dresses, the tight skirts with the heels. And I was just like, this is putting a working on my body because I'm already in pain. And funny, I ended up finding out later on when I was going to different support groups that when you do have an autoimmune disease like multiple sclerosis, tight clothing actually exacerbate your symptoms. So that was one of the things where I was just like, oh, okay, no wonder I'm always feeling achy and just sore by the end of the night. I'm not really dressing appropriately for what my body is now dealing with. So that was one thing, me beginning to dress differently. And, I started being a heel and dress girl, skirts to, okay, where's the jogging suit at? Where's the loose fitting clothes? So, of course, naturally, I gravitated towards, you need to wear footwear that matches that type of clothing. So I started looking at different brands. I never been like the high top girl or a Jordan girl or a Nike girl, all those different things. I was just like, that is not me. Like, I can't see myself wearing that. I just never been into it. So it initially started off with me getting some sneakers made for me, not even in a business format, but I was getting so many different compliments. I just like, yeah, I'm about to turn this into a business because it's something that no one's doing. Like, where is the sneaker brand that's catering to a woman like me? So I decided to create that.
That is so dope. That is so dope how it's like you were given lemons and you legit made lemonade. Like, you like, okay, if I'm gonna have to wear this, then I'm gonna make it where it's not only comfortable
Right.
for me but for other women as well. Like, I love that thought pattern, like being the change in a sense. Like,
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that mindset lends more into the direction that my brand is going in now because at first it was always been J. Marie Premium Sneakers because I'm like, okay, I'm J. Marie and these are the sneakers I had made for me and now they're available to you. So that's where the name came from. But then I started thinking, what else do I want my brand to be beyond that? And I started thinking like, these are sneakers for style influencers with the HER instead of the CER at the end of it because it's like, that's what this is. So I began to kind of change the direction and say these are for those women. Like most women, especially women of color, we're all style influencers. So it's just like if you're a person who kind of like march to your own beat and you kind of turn things into an opportunity that works for you in your own unique way, these are sneakers that are for you because that's what the story is behind them.
Yeah, most definitely. I love the pink python reloaded boots. I love
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Okay, the boot.
yeah,
Yes.
I think it's bright pink, obviously because it's called pink python. But yeah, it's bright pink, and I love brightness. Like, I was all on the website, and I'm like, this is like my personality on steroids. Like,
Awesome.
all the colors and the zebra print. So it's sexy, it's stylish. I can walk in them, and then I have the boots in the winter where I'm standing out, and I'm not wearing the. Because here's the thing, because I saw some of your I saw a couple of your videos. Here's the thing. Why not buy things that are made by you? You know what I'm saying? Like, the
Exactly.
black dollar is in our neighborhood. I want to say for a couple of seconds. Not even a
So true.
minute, just a couple of seconds.
That is so true. And it's crazy because I actually did just post a video talking about that because a friend of mine, well, not, I would say acquaintance, I watch her things a lot because she gives awesome business advice. But she was bringing up talking about how major brands that are typically considered premium brands, which of course is European fashion, we are never their target market. They use us as a way to attract their target market because women of color are influencers, yet we're never set at the table or given opportunity to influence. Only when their bottom line is, they're losing money, their main demographic is now gravitating to another brand and they're like, hey, don't forget about us, let's go get Black women, make it popular again. And now that the dollars are here, we don't want you to wear it. We don't want you in. You're not our demographic. It happened with brands like Gucci. It happened with brands like Tommy Hilfiger and a slew of others. And I just always point out, why not support a brand that is a premium brand that is made specifically for you because it's made by a woman of color. So
right.
Don't deal with a company that you're their second option if you're even an option.
Right, but even in like our music, our culture, all like it's never I won't say it's not never, because some rappers do, but most of it they're highlighting what you just said, Gucci and all of those designers, and it's not a black brand that they're saying. So they're really still inadvertently like pushing people that don't even like us in our culture, and it's not our culture. So what I love about businesses like yours is it's for the culture, like literally for the culture. And I did read on your website that you even use a company in Italy that manufactures shoes for high fashion
Yes,
brands, right?
yes, yes. What a lot of people don't know is that a lot of these, I think that's what Kanye West was trying to tell a lot of people when it came to fashion, but I don't think people were understanding like these, there are certain genres or industries that you will never be a part of because they are monopolized by families. These aren't even companies, these are families who have monopolized on land where they're able to, in Kanye West's case, they are able to develop the materials needed to make certain high-end clothing. So it's like if you are wanting to be in that industry, you have to deal with them because there's nobody else to deal with. And
Right.
same thing with Italian leather. There's only certain families in certain areas. In my case, it's a family in Lamarte, Italy, and they are world renowned for premium footwear. So they make a lot of the high end sneakers and the high end footwear that are household names. And I think the reason why people, like you mentioned, artists, they kind of push those other brands is because those brands, because they have a monopoly, they're able to position themselves aesthetic wise to push themselves to be like, look at what this feels like. This is what it's like to wear this kind of brand. And then the dollars are often more swayed to those companies because they have the pull, they have the more I would say market share. So a company like me, I may not have $1 million budget to go shoot somewhere on a yacht or, somewhere that's luxurious to make you feel like, oh my God, I need to go buy those because it's going to paint a picture to people that, you can't wear this, you can't do this. But it's like, we're not there yet. So it has to be responsibility put on the consumer to understand that this is what's going on and to understand how they can begin to change the narrative. Because if the consumer doesn't change, it's not going to change anything. You can have companies like me pop up everywhere, but if people don't support it and don't change the narrative, then it's going to be the same story.
How do you think the narrative could change, the narrative of what luxury actually is? Because you're right, luxury has been these companies for years, but how can us as a culture in our community change that narrative? Like, what are some small steps that you think, besides what you just said, can like switch that narrative?
I think first of all, realizing that the power is within us. And I say that to mean we are always looked at as influencers. Even if you want to take something as minor as wearing your hair to the back as far as braids. You know what I'm saying? That's something that we did and was created out of necessity when we weren't able to afford, the wigs and the weaves and to do different things. That was just something that we just knew how to do. And we made the best of it to the point that it became a cultural icon and a hairstyle that everybody gravitated to, even outside of our culture. So that would be the first step, is to realize that we are more influential than we think. So we always paint the narrative. I think we have to first realize that and then keep that narrative within our scope of our culture and keep telling those stories in our way and keep it authentic to us and not always thinking that everything, and I don't want to say it to make it seem as if I'm being exclusive, because I think if a person enjoys certain parts of culture, it's nothing wrong with indulging in that. But I think what happens with us is that people they don't just indulge in our culture, they take it over. And then they change the narrative. So I think that would be the first step, is kind of just, keeping it, whatever decision you make business wise or whatever wise, make sure that you're in control of the narrative because it keeps it ours. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You just sparked the light bulb. we don't. Like, our culture is not sacred. It's like
Um,
a buffet. Like, when I think of other cultures, they have their thing and it's sacred, it's within that community. But our story is always being told for us. And I
yeah,
think that's part of the problem. There is no sacred. There is no exclusivity when it comes to our culture.
yeah.
Wow.
And I think it's like it's unfortunately it's like that purposely, right? Because if
Yeah.
you're on a land that your ancestors are not from, then you don't have something that belongs to you. Because for one, you're on a land that doesn't belong to you. I know a lot of people say we built this country, which we did, and in a lot of cases we did. However, that's not where we're not from this area, we're not from this landmass. So I think that other cultures, the reason why it's so sacred is because they're on the landmass where they were able to build those cultures to where it's a tradition. If you think of Chinese culture, they have China or Asian countries. You know what I'm saying? These are
Yeah.
people that are backed by countries. And we're a lot of people would attach us to Africa and say that that's kind of like our roots, but how many African American people ever even been to Africa?
Right.
Who's ever even known to have family in Africa to even know what the culture is over there? So I think that's the disconnect, is that we don't have our own land where we can kind of cultivate this culture where it is a tradition, and that's what makes it sacred.
I love that. I love what you're saying. And it's like when we were ripped from Africa, that's where our culture kind of just the fabric just start tearing. It start
Yeah,
tearing. And even unfortunately there's a disconnect with African Americans and Africa. And like you said, that's by design. You
yeah,
know. So that's unfortunate. I didn't even think about that because I'm like, how is this so easy to appropriate us?
yeah. It's not, like you said, it's not sacred, and I think that's why it's almost like if you were to think about a family that grew up with generations and generations in one house. That's their home, and that generation and generation, that's building of something over time that's going to be hard to infiltrate. Even if you think about with the family in Le Marche, Italy, that's something, that's a craftsmanship that had to be passed down from generation to generation to generation. And I think if you don't have that mindset, for example, if you have a family and one person wants to go to school to be a doctor and the other person wants to go to school to be, an engineer, and it's not a cohesive thinking of what are we doing to build generational wealth? What are we doing to keep this in our family? And I think by us being detached from our landmass, it has put us into that mindset of individuality. And it's almost like a tricky game, because it's almost like everybody is pushing individuality, but the only people that is actually practicing it is us. Because everybody else is pushing individuality, but they're not moving individual, because when they make moves, they're making generational moves. If
Right.
somebody is going to school for something, it's because it's going to be adding wealth to that family. It's going to be expounding on that family's empire. And I think that we don't do that. We took the medicine and fed into the idea of the American dream, when in actuality, the American dream, it's not individuality, it's always family.
It's
So I
community,
think,
right?
yeah, you can't have any, even the word tell you that. I don't know if you're a Bible person, but it say a
Yeah.
house divided against itself can't stand. So if everybody's individual and divided, the Most High himself is telling you it's not going to stand. So
Right.
you have to
Yeah,
think about it that way.
yeah, you're right because we have so many subcategories, colorism and ageism and ism. There's so many isms out there that's not even
Right.
important. And if we could just drop those isms that we didn't give ourselves in the first place and just learn like the importance of community and not competition. And
Yeah.
I feel like that is still kind of a myth within like like all females, all cultures, where we're very competitive with each other. And I don't think that's the case all the time. Like, I feel like it's more a community with women that I've experienced. I haven't experienced much competition. I can't. How do you feel about that statement?
About competition between women?
Yeah.
I think it's another fallacy that we've been fed and kind of bought into. Because like you said, you yourself, you haven't experienced much competition. Even myself, I meet a lot of women who are collaborative, even meeting women like yourself who allow me to come on your platform and talk about what I have going on. I've always met women like that. But I think as a whole, it's this idea once again of, like I said, that they push, and I hate saying they because it's like, who is the they? The power that be. Like, who is it? But it's almost like the same thing with how they push the narrative of individuality. I think that you know what? I was going to say that the narrative of competition is pushed, but I take that back. I think that just the way that women are raised, it makes you competitive, because you got to think about it this way. Women are raised to be wives and rear a family more so than men are. I mean, think about it, because even our toys is geared towards family, taking care of stuff. Men, their toys are geared towards individuality and kind of just being a lone wolf. They're not playing with toys and saying, this is the husband, this is the wife, and we're gonna have kids. They're like playing with superheroes and like all these imaginative things that allow them to be like these big dreamers and kind of, if you want to say, aloof, whereas women are always taught to be like grounded, and it's about family, and you have to become somebody's wife. And I think that in itself breeds kind of like a personality of being competitive, because if you're grown up thinking that you have to get married, that's competitive in itself, because you're not the only woman in the world. And then we're taught that men are visual. So right there, that's being implanted in us, like, okay, if men are visual and men like big breasts and big hips and big this and big that, I gotta be all of that. So that breeds competitiveness in itself. So I think if you haven't matured, mentally and emotionally, kind of have a different approach to things, we can all be competitive, right? Yeah. But I think when you get beyond that, you kind of did some things or went through some things in your life that kind of took that out of you.
Yeah, I agree with that. And even with women are on the move. I feel like since 2020, we've been on the move. Yes. About a couple of weeks ago, I looked it up and they said that women are becoming, if not already, the biggest demographic of entrepreneurs, and it's Black women on top of that. And even with all of this women movement, we still have posts today where Ashanti is, I think, like 40 something, and they're just like, how is she this cute and not married? And it's like, did you ever think that maybe she don't want to be? Like, it's still that old thinking of she should be married. Why? Right. Why can't she live her best life at 41 without? Why does it always have to be tied to a man or a relationship? And I feel like even with us making all these footprints, I don't know when, like, I'm not gonna say all the male species, but the old thinking can kind of disintegrate and kind of progress with our movement, because I feel like that's the thinking process is a little bit slower than our progression, because we're on the move,
Yeah. But you know what though, I agree with you, but here's where I kind of disagree.
Okay.
I think that men are they are an integral part, because I think society, that's another thing that they kind of made us into thinking. It was like at some point they bred that in us, like, you have to grow up to be a wife, you have to do this. But at some point it shifted to, you don't need a man, you can do it on your own, you can be independent, this and that. And that's so true. That is so true, because I think women go through so much that it makes our tenacity to be strong and be able to go through things. However, that is in this construct. You understand what I'm saying? Because if the dynamics change and things went back primitive like they were, when the things that we as women celebrate wouldn't be irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? Like, you being a CEO of a company isn't relevant if things go back to where you got to go hunt for your own food. like you're gonna really want a man to go out and hunt for you. I know I'm not gonna go hunting and doing all of that stuff. So it's like you just kind of gotta play the game, and understand that unfortunately, if we're on the chessboard, of course the queen is moving differently, and she got all these different moves, and she's in front of the king, but that's in a game. You get what I'm saying? It's a game.
So, I get what you're saying, yeah. And I'm not trying to erase the men existence.
Yeah,
I just as important. But I feel like when I see a post of a girl just at Ashanti at the beach on vacation, why?
Right.
Why such comments? And
I agree with
herself. That. Right. Like why are we assuming she's lonely? Or I think the statement that kind of irritated me was something must be wrong with her because she's vacationing by herself.
Right. Yeah, that is crazy. I think people just read too much into stuff. So I totally get what you're saying, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that very early on, women are automatically attached to be somebody's wife, be somebody's better half. And it's nothing wrong with that. Just like it's nothing wrong with, if you're a powerful woman and you're making all these moves and you're as beautiful as Ashanti, it doesn't mean that something's wrong just because you don't see a man in it. And then you don't know that lady in real life, so you don't know what she has. She probably has a man or a husband, and we just don't know. Her entertainment life is not a reflection. It could be a reflection of her, but in most cases, most entertainers, they have lives that are private that they choose not to disclose publicly.
Exactly. And I've been married for almost 13 years, and I know that a part of my success and most of my, like a large percentage is from my husband's support and pushing me when I didn't think I can do things. So I do agree with you, like the man has his place, but if I wasn't married, I'm just as important. I'm just as strong. I'm just as smart.
Right.
He's an addition to me. What? I've already started off solid. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. You know what? That you saying that kind of just clicked everything that you were trying to say with the Ashanti thing. I do think that society does paint this picture that, women are not whole without a man. When the concept should be, we're both beasts. Why can't we just both be beasts and we're coming together? It does take a lot to intricately make that work, though. You know what I mean? Because two big, strong personalities sometimes doesn't always work when you're trying to, walk straight, and one person is like, no, we're doing this, and the other person is like, no, we're doing this. But there are some people who have been able to thrive with that dynamics, because believe it or not, a lot of women, they do have men behind them, but because society is kind of like this, women empowerment is kind of like the thing right now, because like you said, we're killing it. So a lot of people, it's marketable to appear to be single. You know what I mean? Because it almost gives this idea of, oh, this woman is unstoppable and she's doing all of this. But come on now, as a woman, for one, we have needs. For two, we have those moments where things are not going right and we're breaking down and crying, and now we need some enforcement.
Right.
We need enforcement to keep things going and make things happen. So definitely for sure a man is somewhere in the background. So
exactly, it's a safety net somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, because no woman is out here just winging and facing the world by herself. I don't care if it's just a sneaky link. You got some kind of male enforcement going on. It may not be a marriage, but you got some testosterone somewhere.
So we talked about you creating your lane and how you stepped out on faith with a need. Like, this is a need. We need this. We need you. So you are creating a lane for yourself, and you stepped out on faith on a need. Because we need you. We need a woman-owned sneaker brand. We need that. So for someone that is similar to you, that is looking to branch out into an untapped field, what advice would you give them to get started?
Absolutely. I always say, first of all, with anything in life, especially in business, always follow your intuition. But first, you have to make sure that your intuition is clear, that is yours. And the only way that you can make sure that your intuition is yours is by investing in yourself, knowing yourself, learning yourself. So that's the first step, so that you can be sure that when you are following your intuition, it's actually yours. Because a lot of things can be downloaded into us that don't necessarily belong to us. And you think you're following your intuition, but you're really not. So that's the first step. And once you know that you're following your intuition, understand nobody can offer what you're going to offer, because it took your personal life for you to have this kind of perspective. So you're the only person that can bring that perspective to the world. So don't let people make you think that. I always tell people I am a non-performance, non-traditional business person, because most of the time they teach you find a business, benchmark your business off of theirs, do everything that they're doing that works, and implement it in your business. I agree with that to some aspects, but if you take all of that, you end up getting a lot of the same thing. You know what I'm saying? You don't get these like breakout companies that are trailblazers and pioneers, because everybody is mimicking each other. And I think every so often things need to be shooken up. And the only way things are shooken up is when you develop that mindset, like, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing. And even if no one else is doing it, obviously, if I'm feeling all of this stuff, it's a calling for me to bring that perspective to the world. So follow it. So my advice is just follow your intuition.
I love that. I love that. And sometimes you don't have to do that alone. And so that's why I commend people that step on that what is it called? That untraveled road, because it does get lonely, because most people think you've lost your mind when you're stepping outside of something that's not familiar. If you're not doing the norm in business, and what you did was totally outside of the norm. And
you're so right, because I got that a lot. Like, so many people is like, oh, you can't compete with this company, they've been in, you can't. And I'm just, when people say stuff like that to me, I'm just always sitting and staring at them like, I'm not even thinking about them, honey. Like, I am not thinking about what they're doing. All I'm thinking about is what I'm doing. And I think when you approach it from that aspect, that's why your title is so fitting. Be your own kind. Because I'm telling you, I know all throughout this interview I've mentioned, being fed a narrative. And I think that I say that so much because I learned so much that a lot of the things that we do are narratives that were pushed to us or downloaded into us. So I think a lot of the ways that we think and do things are just, we think we're being individual and we're really not. And it's really the people who have been allowed to be their own kind that are being trailblazers and monopolizing over everything, because they're sitting over here telling you this thing, but they're operating completely different over here. Like, they're telling you, oh, go benchmark a company, but it's like, okay, who did you benchmark?
Right.
Because it wasn't this company before yours, so you were doing your own thing, right? So why are you telling me to pattern myself off of this when you didn't even do that?
Exactly, because we all started at zero. I always say that on social media when I like, these person have 1 million followers. I'm like, but one thing we have in common is we both started at zero. So
absolutely. Absolutely. That's so true. I think you just gotta, it's so fit into the title, be your own kind. I think that's the best advice you can give anybody, because when you're being yourself, one thing that you know for sure is when things go awry, which they will, you will authentically navigate that. But when you're trying to do things off of somebody else, when things go awry, you're going to be looking for that person to navigate you, because you patterned everything off of this. So now you're going to be looking to handle things the way they would have. And it kind of takes away from the authenticity of things. So I think when you're doing things your own way, it is the best navigator, because you're doing what feels natural to you. You're doing what feels comfortable to you. You're doing you. So who can do you better than you?
I love that. Even starting this podcast, I was reluctant. And my husband was like, I'm like, it is so many podcasts out here. Who would listen to mine? He was like, hey, there's one thing that everybody podcasts don't have, and that's you. And that's what made me start it. Just something that simple, because I'm like, okay. And I'm in a saturated,
No, but you know what though?
Yeah.
When it comes to podcasts, it isn't even about the subject matter. It's about the host, because everybody aren't willing to. It's some people who would never do a show just because who's the host, the kind of person they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, you probably have a certain skill set that attracts certain people that would only talk with you.
Yeah. Which I found, because I really love talking to everyone on here, and if I go in their DMs or just check up on them, they answer me. So it always makes me feel like, okay, they were comfortable, and I made at least a positive impact.
That's a good point, because you know when somebody really wasn't feeling you, because you are not getting no follow up afterwards. They're like, I don't want no parts. So that is a good indicator that people really rocking with you, because you developed a comfortability, like they feel comfortable with you, and you come off as sincere. A lot of people are not sincere. A lot of people, you do their shows and you can inbox them and they won't respond, and you're like, dang, I was just on your show. And it lets you know that it was only just about filling the spot. You know what I'm saying? They weren't invested in what you were talking about. They didn't care what you were talking about. They didn't care what you came on there to talk about. They just wanted to have content to put out. So, it could be a saturated market, but you could bring that. You could bring sincerity. You could bring realness. You can bring making people comfortable. And I think I keep saying this, but that lends to your title as well, because a lot of people, imagine if you would have not did your podcast because you felt like it was so saturated, but within you being your own kind and yourself, you're creating this lane. You know what I'm saying? Where only you can fulfill it. So you just got to be yourself. You have to in anything you do.
I love that. So whether you're on a less traveled road or a saturated one, be yourself. I love that. I love that. I also love, I was all on your website, as you can see, all of your business.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You have a Black Women Show Up Collection grant. I loved your explanation, because the hashtag Black Girl Follow on TikTok, that eliminated any narrative of women not supporting women, because it was a huge phenomenon. Even though people were like, don't do that because you're not going to have your audience. I'm like, but look at the love, just for people not even knowing you. They're just following you.
Absolutely. But you know what? A lot of people were telling me that too. And I did experience that, because for a good month, I would say I had a dip in my views. Everything I would post would stay at 0. But when I tell you, it was about quantity over quality for me, because I met some awesome people, and I didn't even realize how much I was needing that relatability. I didn't even realize how much I needed that, because I was talking to so many different women across the world that looked like me, and we cried, we shared stories, and I realized we all are going through the same kind of things. We need each other, and it's not even about being exclusive. It really is, and it's not about excluding anybody. It's about, where's the safe place for me? And people can say all day, well, you can do. No, you can't. That's just like being a woman. There's only certain things that another woman can talk to another woman, because a man might not ever understand it. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's why even in a marriage, you're not going to be able to talk to your husband about every single thing. You can, but he might not be able to understand it. You might be emotional one day, where you're just feeling all over the place. He might be looking at you like you have lost your mind and thinking like, just stop or just do this. But another woman, you could just tell her, and she would be like, I know. I understand.
Yes. You didn't even have to say much. They'd be like, say less. I already know how you feel.
Exactly. Yeah. Even it's so funny because the guy I'm with is some things he just don't understand. Like I started a diet like months ago. So far I've lost 50 pounds, right? And I've like been
Good.
really I've been like really on it, like going to the gym, eating right. But then I have my days where I'm like, I want some cake. And I'm gonna go get some cake. And he's looking at it like, oh, you're being a pig, no, something in me, hormonal, is making me want this cake, and I want it, and and I can call my mom and she'll get it. She'll like, oh, you'll get it and get back on track. You know what I'm saying? And that's just a small example of that whole movement, how it was so needed for so many women. Because I think we were going through so many things, especially with the pandemic. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people were struggling with all kind of things in their home, and we just needed it. Like, I've seen so many women sharing stories, like beautiful stories, or just even being able to hear somebody talk about something that you thought you were only going through by yourself, and just to hear like, wow, somebody else feels like that, or they're going through that. It's almost like finding your tribe. And it was a lot of times where I was so emotional about that. That's what prompted me to make that line, because I was so moved by that, because like I said, I didn't even know I needed that.
Yeah, and it was the flood of love and support. Like, hey, I'm trying to go live, and everybody's like, okay, sis, right. And then you talk on other, and like you say, you have those little conversations and stuff like that. And, I had a couple of people trying to tell me my fortune, but besides that,
oh my gosh. That is so funny, because I was getting that a lot too. But even hearing people talk about that, it was just like this connectivity. Like, man, it just brought such a nostalgic feeling. Because I think as we get older and we're kind of removed from this idea of like family and neighborhoods, you kind of miss that. Because if you think about it, growing up was like that. Like, you had all the neighborhood, we could sit on each other's porches and talk to each other and come over each other's house and share stories, laugh about stuff, have people supporting you with no questions asked. They're not even asking questions. They're just like, I got you. It was like that kind of thing. And it was just so dope. I was like, man, I got to do something to commemorate this and to keep it going. Because it was such a dope vibe. And it still is, because when I tell you my For You page, my feed has changed so much.
Yes.
And it's so inspiring. It's just like, I'm just seeing me everywhere. Just seeing us everywhere. And I think that's so dope. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy content by anybody else, because I definitely do. But even a person who says they have a problem with it, they know it's something different when you can connect with somebody that comes from where you come from, and they can talk about the things that you talk about. Because let's just be honest, there's just some things you're not going to get because you didn't grow up a certain way.
Right.
You didn't have to deal with certain things, so you will never be able to connect with somebody like that. And that's not to say that we can't connect on other things, but this is a social platform, so a lot of the things that we're looking to connect to is going to stem from a social standpoint. So if we didn't grow up the same kind of way and we didn't have the same kind of family dynamic, there's going to be a disconnect, because you might talk about something and you may think it's relatable, but I'm on the other end, like, I ain't never experienced that, as I'm sure they're looking at us that way. So it was just super dope.
And you make a point. It's a social platform. The social media like Instagram, Facebook, it's all come to like business. But the whole point of Facebook, because I was the first one, was to keep in touch, was to socialize, was to build like a technical community, an internet community in a sense. And it's turned so business. And I feel like I'm loving what you said, is when we did the follow, it was almost like being on the porch, like playing Uno with each other, drinking,
right? Yeah.
And, like, look at her walking down the street. It's that thing we were talking about earlier, like community. Community,
And then that is such a great place though for businesses to stem from, because now there's the connection. You know what I mean? I think what you said when you said it became a lot of business, that's what made it feel like business, because there was no social connection. And it was just like, I'm being sold to. Even if you are doing something that's familiar to me, I know I'm being sold to. You know what I mean? So It's just like, it's a disconnect. So I even think it's awesome because I've had so many women purchase my sneakers just from that train. And I'm talking about, that wasn't even the initial conversation. They just happened to be looking on my feed and was just like, I didn't know you sold sneakers. I just ordered a pair. I'm like, really? Thank you. So, yes. So it was super dope. And what made me want to do that from a creator standpoint, as far as offering the grant, is because I started seeing a lot of women saying, okay, you guys, I got 1,000 followers, but now what do I do? Okay, you guys, I can go live, but now what do I do? And I think that it was important to add that aspect because, like I mentioned earlier, we strive to be a company that is for the style influencer. And a lot of times we look at influencers in this certain light. We look at influencers as the girl who got all the, the Gucci, the this, the that, and traveling everywhere. When, that's, to me, that's not an influencer. That's a person that's doing something everybody else is doing. So for that girl, it is. I mean, essentially, look at how many people that you can find on Instagram that are going to the same kind of places. You know what I'm saying? And you might think you're doing something influential, but it's just like, we all know what this is about already. So it's like, you're not teaching me or showing me something I don't know about. So what made me want to create that grant is because I started thinking like, I want to start pushing to the narrative for women to really change the dynamic of what it means to be an influencer or a creator. It doesn't mean doing something that's already done and kind of trying to make this now your thing. It's about finding who you are in that space, being your own kind, and now you're able to navigate it into those different platforms of being a creator or being an influencer. Because whether you know it or not, everybody might not be a heel girl. Everybody might not be a makeup girl, or a lace front wig girl, or all these different kind of girls. And it's different people all across the world. So you're a creator in your own right. So you don't have to, even if it's just getting on there and talking about how your day was, you're influencing somebody. Doesn't that make you an influencer?
It does. It does. And that's definitely an out of the box definition of influencer, because right now it is kind of boiled down to, I'm living my best life. But you know who influences me? The girl that get on TikTok and be like, look, I ain't got it all together. Let me tell you about my day. Like, that's who influences me.
Right, because it's more relatable. Like I can't get on a plane and fly to Paris and wear red bottoms. That's not relatable to me, because I might not be at a point in my life where I can do that. But what is relatable to me? A young lady who's talking about, hey, you guys, I had a hard day, and here's a hack to a drink. You guys may not be drinkers, but this is a hack to make a drink where you don't taste the alcohol. You influenced me.
Yes.
You're creating content. So I think that, that's the narrative that I want to push with Style Influence Her and being a creator. It's like, and I want to use all those things because it tie into my brand, because that's all that I am about. So I'm trying to look for different avenues to kind of really push, hey, let's change the narrative of what it means to be a style influencer. Let's change the narrative of what it means to be a creator. And I understand that there's not funding for people that go from that avenue, because when you're doing something different, when you're marching in your own lane, it is an uphill battle, because you're not doing something that's already created for you. You're creating it.
Right.
So the numbers are going to be small very early on, but if you stay with it, it's going to ultimately grow to those numbers and to those platforms that the people that you think, oh, they're the biggest influencer or the bigger creators, but you're going to appear that way when you're doing something that's already in place for you.
Right.
Because you're not creating anything from scratch. If you were creating it from scratch, like you said, we all start at zero.
Right. and it'll build slow. But here's the thing: it's something different catches on like this because when you start something different, you get imitators, and those imitators blow it up, and everybody wants to find out the source.
Yes, that is so true, especially with social media, because we got a lot of detectives and investigators that they're like, I seen a video that reminds me of this. They got this from this person. So you're so right about that.
Yeah, they be on it. They really. I'm like, y'all, what do y'all do in the day? They like, we detect. How did you find?
Right.
They go from one. I think they were trying to figure out who was the originator of the black girl follow train because they weren't getting credited. You know how most of those sounds get credited, but that one sound that was just blowing up TikTok was not credited. So a person, so people were going through another person, they end up finding that person. And she was like, why bother? But everybody was like, no, tag her. And I'm like, they will always find the originator. Always.
Yeah. And it even goes back to what we were saying. If you're not somebody that's already like, because I always say that people love, in some cases, to push things that are already a movement because it's easy. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to convince a person to follow somebody that got 1 million followers because it's going to create this group think of, well, they must be about something because 1 million other people think so. Versus a person who may have the most profound things to say, doing the most awesome things, they might only have 500 followers. And we're conditioned to think, well, if they were that awesome, they would have more followers. But no, I look at it like they're doing something that's different. They're creating their own path. Before you build a house, you got to clear the land, So that's how I look at it.
No, I love what you're saying. It's levels to it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, definitely. It's levels to it. And foundation is probably the most labor intensive part when you are creating your own life.
Exactly. Yes. But I think it will be very you will definitely reap the fruit of your labor when you stay the path and you created that foundation and you begin to build things. Because it'll be 4 years this April that my brand has been in motion. And each year, I'm just always like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't stop. Oh my God, because it just gets better and better. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have my times of stagnation or times where it's like, okay, this needs something resuscitated here, but then it's like a back and forth, but it's like, I never stopped. And because I never stopped, I was continuing to build, like in the stages where everybody was like doubting it and saying, I don't think you should do that, or I don't think it's going to go anywhere, or people don't really buy those, all the naysayers. If I would have listened and stopped, I would have never been at this point, meeting awesome people like yourself, or even being able to share my story on different platforms, or even being in business to have a platform to start something like the Black Women Show Up apparel. So it's just like, just keep going.
I love that. Well, here at BYOK, we have a staple question. If you could describe yourself in one word, what would it be and why?
Non-conforming, if that's one word.
Yeah.
Okay. Non-conforming, because I think I've always been that kind of person, like not even when it comes to business, just like anything. Like I remember in high school, I hated high school. Oh my God, I hated it. And the reason why I hated it because I couldn't stand that group think. I could not stand when people clicked up. I couldn't stand when people just they're conforming and they're trying to portray it as like individuality, and you're like, all of you guys act the same. Like you all are doing the same thing, you all are talking about the same thing, you all are the same thing, like you're not doing anything different. So I would say that, and that's why, because I just always offer a different perspective. I'm always going to do things my way. I'm always going to, and my way is always the opposite of the crowd. Like literally anything. I literally live by, if everybody is doing something, go the other way, because something's not right. Like something's gonna end up being bad down that path, because all these people should not be going the same way.
I love that. You know what's something trend I am resisting? Like everybody was watching the Best Man series, and I'm like, nope, it's too
Yeah.
popular.
Yes, I'm like that too. If it's a series or a movie, like when everybody starts talking about it, I instantly go, it's not that good. I already know it's not good because for one, it's always those unique little movies that I end up thinking is like, that was really good. And most people might not think it was good, but I thought it was good. Like, what was that one movie everybody was talking about? And I think it was Bird Box. I want to say.
Oh, I never
think
saw
what was
that.
with the people being blindfolded. I think it was
Sandra
like,
Bullock.
yeah, everybody was talking about that like at one point, and I knew for a fact because I always say every time everybody is talking about it, it's going to be trash. And I tried to watch it, and I was like, I knew I was right. Like, this is not even good. Like, this is so stupid. Like, what is this even about? I couldn't even get through it. So it's just like, no, if everybody is doing something, I'm going to purposely go the other way.
Yep, that's me, and I've never seen that movie just for that reason. I'm like, I'm looking on Netflix. I'm like, so not Netflix, Instagram. I'm like, so they're blind? No, I'm not watching it. And they were like being all philosophical about it. It's about the trajectory of da 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 da. I'm like,
right. I'm like, nah. Y'all trying to get this thing too much gas, and if it was going, it would have its own gas. So no.
Right. Too many vocabulary words in this one sentence. Just long words. Right. I don't trust
it. Absolutely. So I would agree with you. If it one word that would describe me is non-conforming, and I think like even with starting Jamie Reed Premium Sneakers, it so fit into my personality because I've always been like that. I've always been a person that just wanted to do something different that everybody else isn't doing. And I think I think that you're going to start seeing a lot more people doing that though, because I don't know how I know when I first started my brand, and I could be wrong, but I'm just saying from my perspective, I wasn't seeing zebra print in sneakers. I wasn't seeing like these big bold patterns. I even posted like on my Instagram, sometimes I'll post like, somebody copying this because I didn't see this design. Like I even remember the first year, I want to say, when I dropped not Pink Python Reloaded, but Pink, because it's Pink Python Reloaded, which is the boot, and then there's Pink Python, the sneaker. I remember when I first dropped that, there were so many major brands making variations of it, and I was just like posting like, you guys don't see that this is so my design. Like nobody was putting those colors together, nobody was using zebra. And then I started, what was the other sneaker that Exotica. I seen somebody else do like, it was almost like a spitting image, and I was just like, come on guys, like you guys are literally just redoing my designs and making different small changes, but I know it's my design because I didn't see this anywhere.
Right. So you have that, but you can't be duplicated. Can't be duplicated. They can try. They can try.
Yeah. I always tell people that too. Like, you don't ever feel intimidated when people copy you because they have to keep that momentum going. Remember when I said earlier, when things go awry, you're going to be looking for how that person would handle it versus how you would handle it. And if it's not something you authentically gravitated to, you're not going to handle it authentically because it was never yours to begin with. And that's going to come off to people.
Boom. So Janyelle, where can people go to purchase these shoes?
Yes, so you guys can go to www.jmariepremiumsneakers.com. Make sure that you join the mailing list because when you join the mailing list, you're going to get $30 off your first purchase, and you're going to be able to be invited to an ongoing sale, which is very steep discounts on all of the sneakers that are on the website. So if you see a fave, join the mailing list because for one, you get $30 off, and there's a highly chance that your fave is on the ongoing sale list because it's like a certain set. I'll say I call it the faves because they're always like my favorite pick, and then I put them on like a steep discount, but they're only available to the people on my mailing list.
I like that. That's tricky. You got to put in your email. You know how those things pop up and you like X. Nope, don't X that. Put your email in. I know
Yes.
I'm on that list. I'm like info at.
Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you for signing up to be on the platform. I really enjoyed our conversation. Like I'm so inspired because I didn't realize that females weren't really like a staple in the sneaker bit. I didn't until I read your website. I'm like, dang, you don't even
And I
think
appreciate that too from you. That just even really checking it out, because you have people that say, I went on your website, and you like, you're not really talking to me. You know what I'm saying? So for you to have mentioned like the Black women show up, and then even that tidbit of it being a male dominated and a sports dominated industry, like you really checked out the website. And I think that when you are looking to purchase from a brand, you do want to really look into what is this brand's value? What do they stand for? What am I buying into? Because a lot of times it's more than just purchasing the product. Because when you fund something in the form of purchasing a product, you're funding what that person believes in. And if you don't know what that person believes in, it will behoove you to find out, because in a lot of cases, you may be paying for your own demise.
which is in the case of some of these luxury brands, unfortunately, where you look into history and you like, what? Yeah, it's very important to know where your money going, because you work hard for your money, so you want to make sure it's aligned with your values at time, not always with the trend, but with your values.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, because you definitely are like the stellar example of the consumers that I would wish to have, like consumers that actually read and look into stuff, because then they'll realize, wait a minute, it's not just quality, it's not just style, it's actually, values behind this. There's actually strong, roots, and this is like a brand that really stands for something. So I really appreciate that. I think that's dope.
Thank you. I mean, I've appreciated this time, and I can go on and on and on. I have to always stop myself every episode, because I'm like, people might actually have things to do, and I'll be like, and another thing, so I have to catch myself. It's just so many dope people in the world, and I just like be drinking people up. But I just love everything about your brand. I love everything about the backstory. Because MS that's not no easy diagnosis, and I love the fact that you're like, you know what, we're gonna move forward, and I'm gonna adjust, and then you adjust it to like the ultimate level, like, and then I'm gonna start a business. A sneaker. So I love
didn't even think of it that way. You're
right.
I
love that. I love that, and I thank you for this. I thank you for this, because you know what? You're going to inspire another woman or another little girl to tap into something that is mainly male dominated. So you are setting generational wealth, not just in your family, but in other families as well. So we salute you.
Thank you so much. I thank you so much for having me. I have enjoyed you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed you as well. And listeners, you heard her. Be authentic. Follow your intuition, and whether you are in a saturated field or you're in an untapped field, be yourself, because that's all we need is you. There's a million different businesses out here, or even some untapped, but the thing is, there's only one of you. So make sure that you shine yourself in all that you do. So
make sure you be your own kind.
Yes. Thank you. And until next time, everyone, don't forget to be your own kind and to be kind to each other. Bye.